Are there any matters that we need to get on the record before bringing the jurors back in? On behalf of the state?
No, Your Honor.
On behalf of the defendant?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. Before I bring the jurors back in, I just again, and I appreciate everyone's efforts that are here watching the trial. We're going to do what we can to isolate the jurors from you. If you do happen to run into or see one of the jurors, we just ask that you please refrain from any conversations involving the case. Because again, just want to avoid doing anything that potentially could influence someone. Because the worst thing that could happen is that a mistrial gets declared because of the fact that jurors are hearing things that they shouldn't, and then taint the entire pool. So I appreciate the efforts that everyone's making. All right, Mrs. Harper. All rise for the jury. All right, you may be seated, ladies and gentlemen. At this time, the state may call their witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. The state would call its first witness, Mr. Trent Snider, and I have discussed with him, Your Honor, there are cameras in the courtroom. He does not wish to be photographed.
Okay. All right. Yes. Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, as you shall answer unto God or under the pains and penalties of perjury?
Yes, I do.
You may be seated. Use a microphone. I'm going to ask if you pull that a little closer to you. Okay, it's important that you speak up loud enough so that the ladies and gentlemen of the jury can hear you.
Okay.
For the record, if you would please state your name, spelling your last.
My name is Trent Snider, S-N-I-D-E-R.
Thank you. You may inquire.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Snider, are you employed?
Yes, I am.
And where are you employed?
At the Shaw Davis Funeral Home.
How long have you been working for them?
Just about 2.5 years.
Tell me what your job duties are.
My title is a funeral home attendant / removal tech. So basically, I have a lot of different things that I do there. One of the big things I do is I take a van and I go on removals around hospitals, nursing homes, and residences and pick up decedents for the funeral home. And then when I'm not doing that, I'll work around the funeral home doing cleanup and working calling hours and greeting families. I'm also an ordained minister and I do services there from time to time.
Very wide array of
Yes.
duties. Do you, in performing those duties, do you travel around the city?
Yes, I do.
To the various funeral homes, delivering items?
Yes, yes.
Does that include outside the city of Columbus?
Sometimes, yes.
And I want to direct your attention back to January 29th, which was a Monday of 2018. Were you working on that day?
Yes, I was.
And were you doing the kind of things you just described for the jury?
That's correct. I was doing, yes.
When you were out on the street, did you have any contact from Kim Ross?
Yes. She had dispatched me to go to a funeral home out in Johnstown to deliver some things. So I had finished that, and I was on my way back to Columbus, and she had called me on my phone saying, would you mind going by?
Sustained as to hearsay, rephrase.
Right. Don't tell us, as a result of the conversation, strike that. Will you tell a jury what position at the funeral home Kim Ross holds?
Oh, Kim is our office supervisor, our office manager.
Would she dispatch you to various locations, either to pick things up or drop them off?
That's correct.
And did you have contact with her when you were coming back from Johnstown, Ohio?
Yes.
And as a result of having contact with her as a dispatcher, will you tell us where you went?
Yes, she had sent me, like I said, she had sent me to a funeral home out in Johnstown to deliver something. I had finished doing that and I was on my way back to Columbus. Then Kim had called me on my phone asking me if I would mind.
You can't tell us what she said. I guess my question
Tell us what
is
you did.
Okay, well,
My question is, after you talked to her on the phone, tell us what you did as a result of talking to her.
I went to the apartment of Miss Anderson, and then I went there to check on her, to see if she was okay. So I got out and knocked on the door several times, and there was no answer. So then I thought, well, I'll go over to the rental office, and I went over to the rental office, and I talked to, I believe, what was the landlord, if I'm not mistaken. And I asked her, I told her what was going on that morning, and that all the funeral home employees were concerned that Miss Anderson had not called us or texted us because she had not showed up to work yet. So we were all very concerned because that was not like her character not to do that. So I asked her if she would possibly go over to the apartment and please look inside. And she informed me at the time that she really couldn't do that. So then after that, I walked back to my van and I called Kim, my supervisor, and told her what the landlord had said, and she advised me just to go ahead and call 911 and call the police. So then I called the police and informed them the same thing about how we were all concerned about how she's not responded. So then they dispatched a couple officers over to the apartment. I waited for a little while, and the officers had arrived, and I explained to them the same thing about how we were feeling and how we were all concerned about her not showing up to work. And they said to me, well, we really can't go in.
They did.
Sustained.
Again, Mr. Snider, if you don't say what they said, but if you tell us, did two uniformed officers in a cruiser, marked cruiser, respond to the apartment there that you were at, that Rachael Anderson lived?
Yes.
And had you been to the apartment before?
Yes, I was.
On a previous occasion?
Yes,
And so you knew where she lived?
that's correct.
And did you know what kind of car she drove?
Yes.
And will you tell the jury what you found when you arrived there as far as her car in relationship to her apartment?
Yes, when I arrived there, I had seen Rachel's car parked around the corner from where she lived, not in front of her unit, and that's what I found, yeah.
When the two uniformed officers arrived, did you have a conversation with them about the concerns of the funeral home?
Yes.
And did the officers enter Rachel's apartment?
No.
And did you understand that they did not have the ability to enter the apartment?
Yes.
And what did you do next after the officers indicated they were unable to enter the apartment?
Well, I had told them, while I was waiting for the police to show up, I just kind of looked around and I saw that there was a little crack in the blind in the front window of the apartment. So I just kind of peeked in there and see if I could see something, and I saw a candle burning on the coffee table. So that's when I told the police that I thought, you know, this was of my concern, that there was a candle in the apartment burning.
And you had knocked on the door, correct?
Yes.
And received no answer.
Right.
And what did you do next?
Well, then the police had informed me that they didn't have probable cause to enter the unit at that time. But they went over to the rental office and found the rental agent that I had spoke to previously and asked her to come over and to open up the unit, which she did. She opened up the unit.
And did she go in the unit?
Yes.
And about how long was she inside?
I'd say just barely under 5 minutes.
And did the police go in with her?
No.
And did she exit the apartment?
Yes.
And did she find anything, or did she add any additional information to what had previously occurred before she went in?
No, she just said to the officers, and I would,
Again, sustained as to hearsay.
so I'm sorry.
Again, not wanting to hear what she said. She'll be here later, so
Right.
she can testify what she found in the apartment. But she went in and she came out, and Rachael wasn't with her when she came out, correct?
That's right.
And at that point in time, you and the police left after she inspected the apartment.
That's correct.
And at that point in time, you reported back to Kim Ross that you were there at the apartment and you had not found Rachael Anderson.
Right.
Do you know about the time of that Monday that you would have went to the apartment?
It was a little after 12.
And you went on about your assigned duties for the rest of the day,
Yes.
correct? Mm-hmm. And you later were contacted by detectives of the Columbus Police Department?
Yes,
And did you give them a statement at that time?
that's correct.
And that statement is the same thing you've told the jury here today?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Snider. I have no other questions. Mr. Thomas may have some questions for you.
Thank you, Mr.
Or
O'Brien.
Ms. Dixon.
Cross-examination?
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Snider.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Good. My name is Isabella Dixon. I'm one of the attorneys representing Anthony Pardon. I want to just ask a few questions just to clarify your testimony.
Yes,
Okay? You indicated that you worked for Shaw Davis for 2.5 years.
correct.
Is that 2.5 years up to today or 2.5 years from
Up to
2018?
That would be up to today.
Up to today. So, did you and Rachael get hired around the same time?
No,
Who got hired first, you or her?
Rachel was employed before me.
Okay. When were you employed?
I started at the funeral home on September of 2017.
Do you know when Rachael started?
I couldn't tell you for sure.
Okay. And so, you indicated that you got there about 12.
Yes.
How long were you there?
Well, at least a half an hour, or maybe a little more, 40 minutes. I don't know, I was upset that morning.
Okay. So you think it might have been a half hour or 40 minutes?
At least.
Okay. Could it have been more?
It could have been.
Okay. Could it have been an hour and a half, maybe?
I don't know, about an hour and a half, maybe. Like I said, I was so upset, I don't know for sure.
But you were definitely there when Lisa Richardson, the apartment manager, went in the apartment.
Yes,
Did you notice, did Lisa Richardson use a key going into the apartment?
yes,
So the apartment was locked?
yes.
Did Lisa Richardson lock it back?
I don't remember.
And so, you said you had been out there on one other occasion?
Yes.
And when was that?
Well, if my memory serves me right, it was like maybe a month or so. I cannot be precise about that, but I think it was a month or so earlier. I had delivered her car out there. She had new tires put on her car, so that's how I found out where she lived.
Did you pay for those tires?
No.
Okay, so if Lisa Richardson said you paid for those tires, that would be a lie on her part.
I can tell you who paid for them.
Who paid for them?
The funeral home did.
Did you say that you paid for them?
No.
Did you assist in going to get the tires put on the car?
No.
Okay, but you drove the car after the new tires were put on?
Right.
Okay. Was Rachel in the car with you?
No.
Where would she have been?
She was sick with the flu at the time, and I had brought the car to her for that reason. And I went, and she came to the door, and she was pretty sick with the flu, and I told her, here's your car, Mr. Shaw got your tires put on.
Okay. Did you pick up the car also to have the tires put on?
It was at the funeral home, if I'm not mistaken, and I drove it to her apartment, I believe.
Okay, so someone left the car at the funeral home.
Right.
She was back at her house ill,
Yes.
but you're the person who drove the car to get the tires and then to...
Well, I don't know about I didn't get the tires. The tires had already been put on the car, and then I took the car over to her.
Where did you get the car from when you took it to her?
The car was at the funeral home.
Okay, just so I'm clear, funeral home paid for new tires, right?
Right,
The car was already at the funeral home.
right.
Who took the car to get the tires put on?
I don't know.
Okay. And you said that would have been about a month prior?
I can't tell you for sure, but if my recollection was maybe around that time, I'm not absolute on that.
And then just one question, when did you become ordained? Were you ordained when you worked for the funeral home already?
Oh, I was already ordained, yes.
And just so we're clear, when the apartment manager went in, she was in there, you said, for about 5 minutes?
Yes,
And came back out and there was nothing unusual?
right.
Okay. And you left at that point?
Yes, I left.
Did you ever go back?
No.
Okay. Can I take 1 second, Your Honor?
You may.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you, Mr. Snider.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dixon. Redirect?
No, Your Honor, thank you for coming down, Mr. Snider.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Snider, okay. You can step down, sir. You're not to discuss your testimony with anyone while this case is still pending.
Fine.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. All right. Counsel, please approach. Excuse us, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go ahead and break for lunch at this time. I need you back in the jury room at 1:15. We'll try to get started as close to that time as we can. Again, remember the admonitions that I've given you with respect to discussing this case among yourselves or with anyone else. All rise for the jury. All right, counsel. See everyone back around 1:15.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.